Sicily, 1860. The island was in chaos. Italy had just fought a long and bloody battle for unification, and Sicily, once ruled by foreign kings, was now part of a new nation. But instead of bringing peace, this change left a dangerous power vacuum. With no strong government to enforce the law, violence and corruption took over. In the countryside, wealthy landowners needed protection from bandits. In the cities, businesses struggled under the weight of unfair taxes and ruthless criminals. And in the shadows, a new kind of power was rising, a secret brotherhood that would soon control everything. This was the birth of Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian Mafia. The afternoon sun sat heavy over the island of Sicily, stretching its golden light over the hills and valleys. The land was rich, covered in fields of wheat, citrus groves, and olive trees. Small villages sat quietly between the rolling hills, their stone buildings standing firm under the weight of time. On the surface, everything seemed peaceful, but behind the beauty, a different reality existed. Fear lingered in the air like a thick fog. People walked with their heads down, careful with their words. At night, doors were locked and windows were shut tight. For many years, Sicily had been controlled by outsiders. One ruler came, collected taxes, and left. Another arrived, bringing new rules and making promises that never lasted. The people had no power over their own land. The local government was weak, and justice was something that only existed for the rich. In the countryside, bandits roamed freely. They attacked farms, stole livestock, and took whatever they pleased. In the villages, corrupt officials took money from the poor and made life harder for them. No one felt safe. No one could trust those in power. With no real protection, Sicilians turned to the only people they could trust, their families and their neighbors. Small groups formed in secret, promising to look out for one another. If a thief stole from one family, the others would make sure he paid for it. If a stranger tried to take their land, they would fight back together. These groups did not follow written laws. They had their own rules, and loyalty was the most important one. If someone broke a promise, they were punished. If someone betrayed the group, they disappeared. Silence became a way of life. No one talked to the authorities. No one trusted outsiders. At first, these groups were protectors. They settled arguments, made sure debts were paid, and kept strangers in check. People respected them. They feared them. The government was far away, but these groups were close. They knew the people. They knew the land. They could punish those who disobeyed. Over time, their influence grew. What started as simple protection became something bigger, something more powerful. Without realizing it, the people of Sicily had created something new, a silent force that controlled everything from the shadows. A system where fear and loyalty were stronger than any law. It was the birth of something that would change the island forever. It was the beginning of Cosa Nostra. Sicily's streets were never truly silent. Footsteps echoed in dark alleys, whispers passed between shadowed figures, and the salty air carried the scent of burning wood. Change was creeping in. The small groups that once protected villages were no longer just defenders. They had discovered the power of fear. At first, they asked for little, a share of a farmer's harvest, a small fee from merchants for protection. No one argued. They knew the price of refusal. Crops burned, businesses collapsed. A silent warning would appear like a bullet on the doorstep. A dead animal at the gate. It was easier to pay, easier to stay silent. As the years passed, the groups grew stronger. They spread beyond the villages, moving into the cities. There they found new opportunities. Wealthy landowners needed men who could handle problems quietly. A missing contract, a troublesome worker, a political rival. All could be dealt with for a price. And the price was never just money, it was loyalty. Once someone took their help, they belonged to them, forever. Soon these groups were no longer scattered protectors. They became connected, forming an invisible web of control. A man who refused their help in one town might find himself unwelcome in another. A shopkeeper who refused to pay might find his suppliers turning away. Even the police, the judges, and the officials, those who were supposed to uphold the law, began to look the other way, some out of fear, some because they had been paid to forget what they saw. In the heart of it all, a new word began to spread among the people. Cosa Nostra, our thing. It was not a name they spoke loudly. It was whispered, passed from one ear to another. A secret shared only amongst those who understood. It was no longer just a group. It was a system, a hidden empire built on silence, loyalty, and control. By the time the government realized what was happening, it was already too late. Cosa Nostra was everywhere. It was in the markets, the banks, the farms, and even the halls of power. It could not be seen, but it was felt. It could not be touched, but it touched everything. And it was only getting started. The sun dipped behind the Sicilian hills, casting long shadows over the village. In a dimly lit room, a group of men stood in silence, their faces calm but their eyes sharp. In the center, a single candle flickered, its weak glow making the shadows on the walls dance. The air was thick with tension. Tonight was not an ordinary night. Tonight a new member was about to be sworn in. A young man stood at the center, his hands trembling slightly. He had proven himself, shown that he was loyal, shown that he could keep his mouth shut, shown that he was willing to do what had to be done. But loyalty was not enough. In Cosa Nostra, loyalty had to be sealed in blood. One of the older men stepped forward, holding a small knife. Without a word, he took the young man's hand and made a shallow cut on his finger. A single drop of blood fell onto a small piece of paper. On it, the image of a saint. The man set the paper on fire, letting the flames flicker and burn until nothing remained but ashes. The young man watched as the fire consumed the paper, the warmth of the flame brushing against his skin. Then, in a low voice, he was told to repeat the words that had been spoken for generations. "If I betray Cosa Nostra, let my soul burn like this saint." It was not just a promise, it was a curse. From that moment on, he was no longer just a man. He was one of them. The blood oath was not taken lightly. Once a man joined, there was no leaving. The only way out was death. Cosa Nostra did not tolerate traitors. Anyone who broke the code, anyone who spoke too much, anyone who tried to leave would disappear. And when they disappeared, they were never found. This was what made Cosa Nostra different from the small gangs that came before it. It was not just a group of criminals. It was a brotherhood, a family bound by something stronger than friendship, stronger than business, stronger even than fear. The new members did not just swear loyalty to a leader. They swore loyalty to Cosa Nostra itself. It was their new home, their new bloodline. They would protect it with their lives, and in return, it would protect them. The streets of Sicily were alive with the chatter of merchants, the clatter of horse hooves, and the scent of fresh bread drifting from nearby bakeries. But beneath the surface, there was something else, something unspoken. People walked with purpose, their eyes shifting carefully before they spoke. Conversations were hushed, doors were locked early. Fear was everywhere, but no one dared to name it. Cosa Nostra did not need to make a grand announcement. It did not need posters, warnings, or threats. Everyone already knew. The rules were clear, and the punishment for breaking them was even clearer. Omerta was the foundation of Cosa Nostra, a code of silence so absolute that breaking it meant death. No one spoke, no one confessed. If the police came asking, you had seen nothing. If a friend vanished, you mourned in silence. The punishment was swift and final. One night, a man lived. By morning, he was gone. No body, no funeral, no trace. Fear alone was not enough to control Sicily. Silence was their greatest weapon, stronger than any law, untouchable by the police, the government, or even the church. Omerta was more than silence. It was survival. Breaking it meant death. Those who spoke out disappeared, or found with their tongues cut out. But fear was only part of it. Many saw Cosa Nostra as protectors, not criminals. When the government failed them, the Mafia stepped in. A hungry widow could find help. A cheated man could get justice, not in a courtroom, but through swift Mafia action. Their rules were harsh, but to many, they were the only law that truly cared. But this protection came at a price. Loyalty, silence, obedience. And for those who dared to break the code, there was only one fate: death. By the late 19th century, the Sicilian Mafia was no longer just a loose network of small criminal groups. At first, the Mafia controlled local businesses through a system known as the Piezo. It had transformed into a powerful force that operated in the shadows, controlling businesses, politicians, and even law enforcement. Sicily, already suffering from economic hardships and government corruption, became the perfect breeding ground for the Mafia to grow. The secret society that once began as a way for farmers to protect their lands had now turned into an unstoppable force of crime and influence. With their growing influence, the Mafia took control of politics, businesses, and even law enforcement. Local leaders feared them, and elections were often decided by bribes and threats. Sicily was no longer ruled by the government but by the Mafia's invisible hand. As Italian immigrants settled in America, they carried the Mafia's influence with them. Soon, powerful crime families emerged in cities like New York and Chicago, running illegal businesses, smuggling operations, and underground gambling rings. What started as a secret Sicilian society had transformed into a global empire. Despite numerous efforts to stop them, the Mafia continued to thrive. Law enforcement tried to fight back, but the organization had already spread its roots too deep. Judges, police officers, and even mayors were on the payroll, ensuring that arrest led nowhere. Even when some Mafia bosses were caught, new ones would rise to take their place. The Mafia had mastered the art of survival. Do you trust Mafia justice over a corrupt legal system? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen, and you'll enjoy it.